Today is December 17th, 2018. As I've mentioned many times, there are so many conflicting articles out there concerning the health benefits of various foods. And given that attention spans are very short, I would say a very small percentage of the population actually has the time and patience to look at these findings in a detailed manner enough that they really can understand what's going on. And sometimes even studies that are well intentioned and well designed can provide benefits that are not exactly what they seem. And I'll give one benefit being the Harvard Health Nurses Study, where a large number of female nurses were studied over a long time period. And this study has produced a lot of valuable information. But one of the findings was that yogurt consumption was associated with positive health outcomes, and that may be true. But I will posit that nurses may not be a particularly healthy cohort. They're very busy taking care of other people, and I doubt that their diet is much better than the average American diet, which is not very good. So these nurses that were eating more yogurt were probably eating less of something else. And that something else may have been Twinkies or hamburgers or French fries. So this study was not comparing yogurt consumption to flaxseed and lentils. And also the Harvard Health Nurses Study, they looked at the association between beef consumption and mortality. They did find a positive association, that is, eating more beef tended to increase mortality. But it wasn't shaving a lot of lifetime off the nurses. So a lot of people would say, well, that proves that beef is really not that harmful. But again, as above, it's one bad food versus another. And secondly, they were studying women, which are not nearly as susceptible to heart disease as men in the first place. And I will also point out that in many other cases, there is a deliberate deception involved. And I'll start with the grass-fed beef industry. They often tout the fact that grass-fed beef is 3 or more times richer in omega-3 fatty acids compared to grain-fed beef. And that may be true, but just because I have 3 times more money than a homeless man doesn't make me a wealthy man. And to illustrate this, I will tell you that 100 calories worth of grass-fed beef provides about 50 milligrams of omega-3, but 100 calories worth of flaxseed gives you about over 4,000 milligrams of omega-3. So a huge difference. Another thing that they point out is that grass-fed beef has a lot of CLA, conjugated linoleic acid, and there's really not any good evidence supporting the idea that CLA is healthful. But they did one trial where obese children were studied, and they found that 37% of them, that's not a great number, experienced improved insulin sensitivity when they were given CLA. But I point out that the children were not given grass-fed beef. They were given a synthetic man-made derivative of a component of grass-fed beef. So it makes you ask the question, why didn't they just use grass-fed beef? I mean, food is a package deal. Just because it contains something that's good doesn't mean the food as a whole is good for you. And another good example of misleading studies is the Egg Board funded studies showing that most Americans don't experience a significant increase in cholesterol levels when they are given more eggs. And I'd say that that's true for most Americans because most Americans already are unhealthy and have high cholesterol. So it's kind of like if you take a flamethrower to an inferno, yeah, it probably won't have too much effect on the inferno. But what was interesting in this study was that they did have a few people who were given eggs, and they did experience an increase in cholesterol levels. And they label these people hyper responders. But if you actually examine the characteristics of these hyper responders, they had normal blood sugar levels, normal cholesterol levels, and healthy BMIs. In other words, they were healthy people, and they were impacted negatively by eggs. So there are many, many other examples, but we don't have all day. And hopefully, this gives you a flavor of things to look out for when you're looking at these studies.